Sorry, fase. Oh, eh, gimana ya? Kim bisa bantu terjemahin nggak ya? Aku bahasa Inggrisnya agak gitu.
Oke, mau ngomong apa?
Oh, kalau
Ah, yeah.
Halo Fase,
Yeah, long time not see.
how are you?
Well, I was very busy. I was in my place
Okay,
uh, in India. I have
okay,
a small center,
yeah,
and unless I push everybody, nothing is happening. Everybody lazy. So next year I will do a long retreat here, so that the community can be held together more. I have some very nice pictures. If you like, I can send
yeah.
to
Please
share.
send me some picture. It has been very
Okay,
long that you don't send me any picture.
okay. So you give me some greetings so that I remember
Yeah,
your WhatsApp.
yeah. I will
Okay,
send you some greeting with the snow.
okay. There is also snow in my place.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, I was shown some pictures, and there is like 10 centimeters of snow.
Ooh. Yeah, because
And
your place is quite high, right? The
not
altitude.
not very high, but it is at the foot of the mountains, which are quite high. But it itself is only like 500 meters. But you
Okay.
can see the snow mountains behind. It's
Mhm.
very beautiful.
Maybe at some point I want to visit your place in India, Sufu.
Well, I will have to come here after my courses in Nepal and in Himachal. I have now many courses in India. I am getting some. I have to activate because otherwise nobody helps me here. And it's a beautiful center.
Okay.
And so I collaborate with Dzongkar Khyentse Rinpoche. I teach in his centers also.
Hmm.
And you know the one who is making films, very active
Hmm.
Lama. You don't know, huh?
No.
He's a famous filmmaker and Lama, the nephew of one of the greatest Lama in modern
Ah.
history. You don't know much about Tibetan Buddhism.
No, no. I know some great figure, but I don't know them personally.
Well, of course, you don't get to know them so quickly.
Yeah.
But Now
So,
I'm
mhm.
now I'm myself learning and also teaching in these Tibetan institutes.
Okay.
So it's quite useful. And some things are very. It's basically the same, only the skillful means are very different.
Yeah, yeah.
But knowing Chinese Buddhism, it's more or less the same thing, philosophy and the rules of the practice and so on. So it's very useful to study in depth this awakening of faith
Hmm.
because it's more or less the base for Tibetan Buddhism also.
Okay.
If you have time, you can study the like Anuttara Tantra Shastra
Mm-hmm.
attributed by some to Asanga, and that
Mm-hmm.
is very similar to what you're learning here.
Okay. And so this script, also this awakening script, they maybe they also went to Tibet before, on have some influence on Tibetan scripture or
No, no, it was not translated into Tibetan,
okay.
only in modern times.
Mm-hmm.
But it has largely influenced all the countries who have received
Oh,
Buddhism from China, but not
okay.
the Tibetan Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
But there is this Uttara Tantra Shastra, which is kind of parallel to this, what you learning here.
Okay.
So now, more or less, the time have many participants turn up, or do we have to wait for more?
But since that Viana, you have some question, right? Before,
Ya.
what you want to ask, maybe?
Oh, jadi kalau misalnya kita meditasi, terus bisa nggak kita di dalam kondisi true mind itu, kalau udah di kondisi true mind itu continuation of the mind-nya ada apa enggak gitu?
Okay. What? So the question from Viana is, she's asking if when we are in like in the meditation, when we have like kind of true mind, whether we still have the continuation of mind is still there or not.
Yeah, of course, it is there. Otherwise, you would not remember anything. It has to
Mhm.
be there because you are not a Buddha. Unless you become a fully enlightened Buddha, even a bodhisattvas have still continuity of mind. This continuity of mind this is alaya. You have learned that. Now, because we have alaya, we have the continuity of the mind, but we understand it through the six consciousnesses which kind of take us away from the true mind. So you can have approach to true mind. It is experience, it is explained before. You have some approach to true mind when you stop thinking. So this is samadhi similar to Zen. You have the gradual way, which is also based on thinking, understanding, and polishing. And you have the sudden enlightenment way, which is based on the true mind. And true mind does not think, does not remember, does not give rise to anything. That which gives rise to something, that is the alaya. Okay? And
Okay.
alaya is connected with the karmic consciousness which moves the mind. When the karmic consciousness moves the mind, so you start evolving. And when you evolve, you see all kinds of objects. And unless you have the deep experience in non-thinking, you will not understand that these objects come from alaya. So you will identify with these objects. We have learned all this before.
Another question related to continuous mind is when we at some point that is like nothing, but is something like pop out in the mind is still continuity of something before or is a new mind.
Well, nothing can come out of nothing. There must be some seeds in the consciousness which give rise. The consciousness is limitless. And you have committed milliards and billions of karmas, if you believe in past lives, which memory appears, you can never say.
Mhm.
And when in Buddhist philosophy, the perception is connected with memory. You perceive, uh, be- and therefore you can remember. If you don't perceive, you can't remember. And what you perceive is the sign of the object. And when the sign of the object appears. So immediately you have also the sensation, no? And when you have sensation, you have a differentiation. And when you have differentiation, then unless you have a deep experience of the non-thinking samadhi, then you will identify with the differentiating consciousness, six consciousness, right?
Mhm.
You will not see the that all objects come from the consciousness itself, which is the alaya consciousness, right? So let us start. Did how many people turned up? Do we have to wait? I don't think so. Zriana?
Yeah, I think we can continue, Pastor.
So let us, before we start, a very important topic, which is permeation of mind by function of the essence, either connected or not connected. Let us shortly repeat what we have learned, because in this scripture, everything is connected and repeated again and again in a different way. So you have learned in the beginning that this one mind, which is the essence of the mind, which is the matrix of the Tathagata, the Rulai Zhang, or which is the Buddha nature, it has the three great, the great essence, great characteristics, and great functions. You have learned that, you remember? So the great essence is uh, inseparable from characteristics. And you have also learned that the essence is emptiness. And this emptiness, the characteristics of the emptiness is, you have learned, uh, the uh, uh, the anashrava chitta, the mind without inflow and outflow of impurities, which is the virtues, all the virtues of the mind. They are connected with this essence of the mind and inseparable from the mind. Then now, as in Chinese philosophy, you cannot have essence, Qi, you cannot have characteristic, Yang, without Yung. If there is a essence and characteristic, it has to have application, function. So the function here is creating the uh, the gochara, the jingjie, the objects. We have learned that before. So this suchness, it has a function we have learned. I hope you remember. And this function is of two kinds, either with differentiation or without the differentiation. We have learned that last time. Now, that which is with differentiation, this essence and characteristic is revealed according to our ability of beings to receive. So this one mind, or the essence of the mind and its characteristics, emptiness and the virtue of emptiness, is inseparable from the characteristics. And this essence is the cause. The suchness is the cause, but the suchness to be revealed, it needs a pratyaya, it needs a yuan, it needs condition. So we had this comparison with the fire. you cannot light the fire unless you use some skillful means, right? We have learned that. Similarly, you will not understand the essence of the mind unless you have some skillful means, which are the uh, bodhisattvas or buddhas or the noble friends, which appear to you either as friends or enemies or the relatives in all kinds of different forms in order to guide you towards uh, towards the truth, because this function is based on the great compassion. This suchness is related to the great compassion. Hmm? So, due to this great compassion, all the bodhisattvas, buddhas, the noble friends that we may meet in the shape of relatives, friends, and even enemies. Sometimes we learn much more from enemies, as the Buddha says in Lotus Sutra, the Devadatta who tried to kill him many lives. He is his noble friend, because due to him he has learned all the virtues which he needs, all the paramis which he needs to attain what he has attained. So sometimes we learn much more from our enemies when we understand how to relate to the teachings. And the teaching is always related to the great compassion. So the Buddha is connected always with, and the true mind is connected always with the three miracles. Pratiharya, the miracle of psychic powers, miracle of Desana, miracle of uh, Anushasana, Deshana, and Anushasana, the miracle of psychic powers, miracle of the teachings, Deshana, and the miracle of instructions. And in order to receive instructions, you have to have the proper conditions. You have to be able to receive the teachings. Unless you are able to receive the teachings, you will never open to the truth of your mind, which is emptiness and the uh, non-soiled nature of the emptiness, which is your true mind. But the true mind you will not be able to see without the outer conditions, which are the functions. So they are either differentiated. We have learned they are differentiated either approximate or far. Proximate, like the Buddha appears in Gridhakuta in Rajgir with the original Buddha, the Buddha of the past, in the great stupa and extent, and reveals all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions. This is a near cause. And that near cause you can only understand on the base of samadhi. It will be, we have learned that. You cannot understand the near cause without the samadhi, which enables you to approach the sambhoga kaya, the pao, pao shen, the body of enjoyment. The body of enjoyment you can only understand in samadhi of suchness. Right? We have learned all that. Please remember this. And then you have the far cause, like in the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha gives Vyakarana, the what the prediction to all the disciples that in future they will become the fully realized Buddhas after innumerable kalpas. So it is a far cause. Hmm? So these near causes and far causes we have learned, they increase intensity of our practice when we get Vyakarana, or when through the Sambhogakaya, the innumerable Buddha and Bodhisattvas in 10 directions are revealed to us. So it will intensify our practice, and also it will, due to this, we will be able to receive the great Tao. The great Tao, the great path, is the non-dualistic path. Hmm? Then you have the uh, function by differentiation and by sameness. Function by sameness is like the bodhisattvas, like Samantabhadra, Pushi, and Bosa, they don't differentiate. In the vows to save all beings, Samantabhadra never stops in the vow to save all beings, just like Kshitigarbha, Tizang Bosa, and so on. And just like Avalokiteshvara, Kwanshayim Bosa will never change the attitude of compassion to all beings. It is the compassion itself. So this is the function without the differentiation. So now we come to the very important part of the scripture, and that is the permeation of mind by the function of the essence is of two kinds. We have mentioned two kinds before, by differentiation and non-differentiation. Here we have two kinds in terms of the uh, deeper influence and superficial influence. So the superficial influence is, that is the first kind of the permeation of mind by function of essence, which is suchness, that is not yet connected with the essence of the mind. What is essence of the mind? Non-differentiating wisdom, nirvikalpa jnana. That is the essence of the mind. Unless you have connection with this essence, you rely on the six consciousnesses, and so you don't see that all the objects actually come from your mind itself, no matter whether pure or impure. So this kind of the uh, function of suchness, which is not yet connected with the essence of the mind, which is non-differentiation, is then typical for the Pritagjanas, for the common people who rely only on the differentiating mind, also to the lower vehicles who practice the Vipassana on the base of differentiating wisdom, and on the beginning bodhisattvas who have not yet realized their faith in suchness. And so they practice only on the base of faith understood by differentiation. So also they, like common people or the disciples, they practice on the base of differentiating wisdom. So uh, because they practice on the base of differentiating wisdom, they are, whether they like it or not, they are always, whenever they differentiate, they are subjected to their vasanas, to their habitual tendencies, to the seeds in their mind, because they act on the differentiation. As soon as there is differentiation, there is perception, there is sensation, there is differentiation, and these then conduct the mind on the base of these seeds we have in the mind of the previous experience. We cannot help it. And so we see in a dualistic way. As soon as we start thinking, we see in a dualistic way. That is object, that is subject, they are not together because we rely on the differentiating mind. We don't see that this differentiating mind comes from the karmic mind. In order to see that it comes from the karmic mind, we have to practice the samadhi we have learned before, the samadhi of non-differentiation, and see that as soon as we start thinking, we are subjected to dualism, unless we have realized the non-differentiating mind. Please try to understand, this is very important. When we understand the non-differentiating mind, the nirvana mind, what will happen? We have what is called in Buddhism Prishta Labda Jnana, Ho-Tej, the wisdom of differentiation after enlightenment. So we have a differentiation, but this differentiation, we don't take them as being true. As long as you work on the base of the differentiating mind, you take this differentiating as being really there, as being there in the reality, as being innate to the reality. But the differentiations are not innate in the reality. Please try to understand. So, because they are not innate in the reality, so the essence and its function, they are not the same. When we have realized the true mind, then the essence and the function become the same. But as long as we have not realized the true mind, the essence and the functions are different. So we rely on the differentiating mind, which is not the function of uh, the uh, the essence. So due to that, the suchness is and non-duality is not revealed to us. We think that there is a something outside, some object outside, and some subject being the mind. And the mind with the mental factors moves to the subject as something, not as something separate from the mind. So it shows that you have not realized the essence of the mind and the real function of the mind, which is creating the essence creates the functions, which is the objects that you cannot see being subjected to clinging to differentiating mind, being subjected to dualism, being subjected to what Buddhism calls abhuta parikalpa, to the uh, to the illusion of object and subject being separate. There is a technical term for it, abhuta parikalpa. Hmm? Strictly speaking, it is Wang Xiang. We are subjected to Wang Xiang, that there is something outside separated from the inside. So there is no unity between the substance and its function. We already relate to the objects with the differentiating mind, which does not see that the objects come from the mind itself. And in this tradition, there is no other reality than the mind. The objects come from the mind itself. But in order to understand it clearly and to see it clearly, you need the samadhi. Which samadhi? The samadhi of non-differentiation. So unless you have this familiarity with the samadhi of non-differentiation, you will not have access to the true nature of the mind, which is the knowledge and this knowledge creates this knowledge which extends everywhere and which is connected with lucidity. It creates the objects. Unless you see it clearly with a mind which is connected, already connected with a true mind, with a non-differentiating mind, with a non-dualistic mind. So you have no access, working with the six consciousnesses, you have no access to the spontaneous action, 自在耶, effortless action, which then creates the gochara, the tintie, the objects. So the Buddha uses, it is even explained in Theravada, the three kinds of miracles: the miracle of psychic powers, the miracle of teaching, and the miracle of instructions, to lead us to the knowledge that actually nirvana is the true nature of your mind, which is non-dualistic, which has not erosion, so it cannot cease. And you cannot penetrate it without samadhi. But it does not mean that the knowledge, right view, and right thinking is not useful. It is the cause of the Eightfold Noble Path. But it cannot lead to the non-dualistic samadhi and to the knowledge of mind creating the spheres of object by psychic powers, by the knowledge by the direct knowledge of the teachings without intermediary here even of the words, and by instructing. An instruction is, of course, through the words. So you can only get the familiarity with the suchness, which is the true nature of the mind, by practicing the samadhi of non-thinking. This is the emphasis of Zen tradition. Now, in Tibetan Buddhism, you have two traditions. You have the tradition of the like Dalai Lama, which emphasizes also in the Chinese Buddhism, which emphasizes the gradual understanding through a lot of hearing, a lot of contemplation, and through a lot of hearing and a lot of contemplation, you can then get access to the samadhi of suchness. Now you have the direct way, which is in the Chinese Buddhism, the sudden enlightenment, as opposed to the gradual enlightenment. They are connected. You cannot have true sudden enlightenment without many, many types of gradual process of enlightenment. But the sudden enlightenment is the direct intuition without intermediary of the words. Yet it does not mean that the words are not useful. Even Huineng, when he heard uh, uh, the Daimon Sutra, Chinkanchin, he got a sudden enlightenment. His mind opened. What means his mind opened? He has directly received the non-dualistic, non-differentiating knowledge. Then, what will be the result of this direct, non-dualistic knowledge? Chota Prishtalabdha Jnana, the knowledge after enlightenment, which uses supernatural powers, miracle of supernatural powers, miracle of teaching, and miracle of instructions to guide us deluded beings from the slumber of ignorance. So unless you have a direct access to non-differentiating knowledge, you will always rely on the differentiating knowledge, on the correct thinking to grasp the true nature of the reality. But the true nature of reality in this tradition is non-differentiated. In it, there is no difference between nirvana and samsara. Therefore, it is called suchness. Therefore, it is called dharmakaya, the body of the dharma. Therefore, it is called the dharma dhatu, the sphere of dharma. Therefore, it is called dharmata, Fashing. It is called the true nature of the dharma. All these are synonyms. Unless you have directly seen it, you will always come back to the differentiating thought and take it as something objective. And differentiating thoughts always has an object different from the subject. So unless one has realize the faith. So one will always rely on the correct differentiation. 5 aggregates, where the rupa is different from nama, the ming is different from sa. So we are, so to say, in a vicious circle. And how to understand we are in the vicious circle? By continuous practice of the samadhi of non-differentiation. It's a samadhi of non-thinking, non-remembering. When we think something, we actually remember, because the nimittas, the xiang, comes from the mind itself. And when there appears a xiang, which means object, which means a symbol, which means nimitta, which means also, in a way, the activization of the mind. There is no activization of the mind without an object. But unless you have practiced continually the samadhi of non-thinking, you will always consider that object to correspond to something which is really outside. So it is very difficult not to rely on the differentiating thoughts, which always leads us on the base of manovigyana, on the base of isha, to think that what the mental consciousness sees is really outside. But we have learned this is only due to not understanding how the organ of thinking is functioning through the ignorance which produces a karmic consciousness. When there is karmic consciousness, there is this tianfen ken xiangfen. Tianfen, karmic consciousness, leads to the revealing consciousness. And there is no revealing consciousness without the Dvansha, without the Avarjana Chitta. In Theravada Buddhism, the Avarjana Chitta is the beginning of the mental process. And this mental process starts in the Bhavanga. Bhavanga is alaya. Now, in this tradition, it does not start due to the contact with the outer objects as the believed in Theravada, but it starts due to ignorance which activates the karmic mind. So we believe that the nature of the mind is to move. Please go back again and repeat again, because it seems to be a rather difficult thing to understand. That's why I say you have to read again and again this treatise to know how it is interconnected. The same principles appear again and again on the same level. So you have two kinds of consciousness, not connected with a real mind, which is not dualistic, and connected with a real mind. Here, not yet connected with a real mind, because you are still subjected to believing that what your sixth consciousness experience is really there. The object is really outside and the subject is really inside. We do that, don't we? But that is because of misunderstanding how the mind moves. The nature of the mind does not move. It is only the latent tendencies, the vasanas, the chi, in our alaya, which makes the mind move. But alaya is neither same nor different from the suchness. It is not same as suchness. If it was same as suchness, we would be all Buddhas, but it is not uh, separate from it because we have learned all the objects, they come from suchness. But we don't see it because we believe in what the differentiating mind, what the six consciousness experience. So the essence of the mind and functions of the mind, they are not the same for us. They are not connected with psychic powers. They are not connected with the uh, direct understanding of the teachings without intermediary of the words, and not with the instructions based on the knowledge after the enlightenment. When we become enlightened, we not only have the direct knowledge of the non-dualistic reality, non-differentiating mind, but we have also the access to the mind after enlightenment, which differentiates, but differentiates on the base of, we have learned, of the great compassion, of the great vows, Samantha Badra, of the great compassion, Kwan Bosa, Pushien Bosa. They belong to the true unity of essence and function. We don't belong to the true unity of essence and function because we have not realized the true mind. In the true mind, nothing really arises, but it is not opposed to arising. Nothing really ceases, but it is not opposed to ceasing. This we can only understand when we are already connected. The second is already connected to the true mind. When we already connected to the true mind, what will happen? We will see that nature of the mind is not movement. It is a karmic consciousness which causes a movement. And because of karmic consciousness, we have the evolving mind, Zhuanshe. And when we have evolving mind, then we have objects of evolving mind. Xianshe. So, because there is alaya, which is the aspect of karmic consciousness, then we have this Tianfen and Xiangfen. We have the evolving consciousness and we have the objects of the evolving consciousness that come from the mind itself. But that we don't see unless we are already connected Hmm? Yi xiang yin, wei xiang yin. Not yet connected and already connected. So the second is already connected. Already connected, only when we already connected, we see that the nature of the mind is not movement. Due to movement, there is the evolving consciousness and revealing consciousness. And because there is evolving and revealing consciousness, we feel. This is the Zhixiang differentiation is on the base of feeling. We feel as pleasant and unpleasant. Therefore, we differentiate, and on the base of differentiation of pleasant and unpleasant, we have the continuity of the mind. And this sixth consciousness already works with this continuity of the mind without asking about its source. The sixth consciousness does not ask about the source. It is the non-thinking consciousness which can ask about the source. But it does not ask because it does not use any language, but it has intuition. This intuition is Kaiwu. But Kaiwu will happen only for a short time. When we become realized bodhisattva, already connected, so we never lose it. We never lose it. So this differentiating mind becomes like a dream. When the differentiating mind becomes like the dream, the whole world is like a dream. Because the whole world is based on the karmic consciousness. The differences in the world are the differences of the karmic consciousness. I am not you because my karmic consciousness is different from your karmic consciousness. And there are not two persons which have the same karmic consciousness. Such a thing does not exist. There are not even two dogs or two cats which have the same karmic consciousness. This is a wonder of the world. But we understand it not by non-differentiating wisdom, we understand it by differentiating wisdom. We don't understand it by non-differentiating wisdom because we are not yet connected. We are not yet connected, but we have intuition by practicing samadhi of I Ching San Mei, of Len Yen San Mei, which are synonyms, or Wu Xin San Mei, all these are synonyms. We have intuition that this continuity of the mind comes from the uh, karmic consciousness, which is not the nature of the mind. So we cling less and less to these differentiations because we have deeper and deeper insight. So we get more and more freedom. When we get, if we practice hard by the differentiating mind as I have done, when we get to the stage of entering into the stream, so we get also intuition that the mind which differentiates is like a dream. But we get it through the differentiating mind. So strictly speaking, we still believe that there is an object and a subject. But the intuition will be there. But when we get the non-dualistic realization, then this subject and object become completely unreal, because we rely on the non-dualistic, non-differentiating mind and the differentiating mind after enlightenment. The differentiating mind after enlightenment for the bodhisattvas is different from the differentiating mind after enlightenment for the disciples, because the disciples still believe that there is something there which the subject experiences. There has to be first an object so that the mental process appears. This is a teaching of the uh, disciples. But here, from the very beginning, nothing was really there, because the nature of true nature of the mind does not arise and does not cease. So the reliance of the no, on the mind after enlightenment is then much deeper, because it is free from the belief that there is something there. So it works with the substance of the mind. When we have attained the 8th stage of the bodhisattva, then we can create, which is called achala putong, then we can create. We are not only connected with the essence of the mind, we are also connected with the functions of the mind, of the essence of the mind. So we can create all kinds of objects according to our wish. Now, the author of this treatise, the Ashwagosha Mayin, is supposed, according to Taishi Lao Heshang, is supposed to have realized this high stage. That is why he has such a deep understanding of the non-dualistic mind and how to use the skillful means in order to actually realize it. So he has these 3 miracles of the Buddha: the miracle of psychic powers, miracle of direct access to the true teaching, and miracle of using the skillful means, the words, sentences, syllables, signs, and so on, to guide us, ignorant beings, to this same realization. And this realization is based on samadhi. What samadhi? The samadhi of the non-differentiating mind. When we don't think, what do we differentiate? So even when we practice the dhyanas, we still differentiate it. Dhyana in Sanskrit means to think, dhya. And when there is object, even though we don't use words, we are thinking. But in the samadhi of non-thinking, in the samadhi of non-dualistic mind, there is no object. This is a difference between the dhyana based on object and the dhyana not based on object. Now, the practice of Zen is the practice of the dhyana not based on object. And it is believed in this tradition, it is the fastest way to attain true enlightenment, fastest way to attain the direct knowledge of the non-differentiating mind, not knowledge based on correct differentiation, but based on direct intuition, kaiwu. But this kaiwu is also related to the process. The process of what? Of practicing samadhi without any object like breath, like the kasinas, like colors, or like uh, some form of Buddha, or whatever. And what is the approach to the samadhi? The practice of the Brahma Viharas. Why? Because in the Brahma Viharas, metta, karuna, mudita, upekha, we have differentiation and non-differentiation together. In one being, we see all beings. In all beings, we see one being. So we can understand that the true mind is without differentiation, but does not oppose differentiations. It is without arising, but does not oppose arising. It is without cessation, but does not oppose cessation. Why? Because it sees the source, and the source is suchness. And the source has essence and also the characteristic. It is always pure. It is never subjected to inflow and outflow of impurities, to disturbances. There are no disturbances when we do not think. Disturbances come from thinking. But without the correct thinking, we will not be able to stay in the samadhi of non-differentiation. It is also not possible. So some traditions, like the tradition of Dalai Lama, emphasizes that through the correct thinking and correct view, we can actually enter into the samadhi of non-duality. The other tradition, like Zen or like Dzogchen, like Mahamudra, they emphasize rather entering the true nature of the mind by samadhi of non-thinking, samadhi of emptiness, samadhi of suchness. So that we see suchness, hear suchness, taste suchness, smell suchness, touch suchness. How is it possible? Because we are connected to the source. We are connected to what we have described as the organ of thinking, to manas. This organ of thinking comes from the true mind, which is non-dualistic, but we don't see it because we don't practice continually the samadhi of suchness, samadhi of non-thinking. The suchness does not think. Suchness does not remember. In suchness, things arise, but nothing really arises. This is the mystery of suchness, which we have penetrated when we already connected with the true meaning of the mind. Then we become the Dharmakaya Bosa, Fashion Bosa. Fashion Bosa, always connected with the essence of the mind, but he is not yet master of the functions of the mind. For that, he has to go high, much higher. So he's connected with non-differentiating and also with the function of wisdom of all the Buddhas. Function of wisdom of all the Buddhas is the great compassion and great vows connected with the essence of the mind. So when we connect it with this essence of the mind, then we can function or learn to function. It is a long process without any effort. This is called anabhoga, anabhoga karma. When we become realized bodhisattva, we can learn to function effortlessly. You can call it spontaneously. Spontaneously is effortlessly. Why? Because we understand the true mind is effortless, because it never arises and never passes away. Yet it is not opposed to arising and not opposed to passing away. So this is the knowledge of the highest truth, paramartha. Through the knowledge of the highest truth, we are then connected to the essence, characteristics, and functions of the one mind, of the true mind. So we are connected with all the Buddhas who appear in this one mind. So it relies on spontaneous practice based on the power of Dharma. What is Dharma? The suchness. There is no other Dharma than suchness. The suchness is nirvana, the suchness is samsara. This power of suchness, then, just like when we are disciples, when we have realized nirvana, then the path, the marga, the Tao will lead us to become an arahat. When we have realized nirvana through the non-differentiating mind, then this non-differentiating mind, which is suchness, will then lead us to a complete removal of ignorance. Complete removal of ignorance is also the removal of all the latent tendencies in the mind, connected to differentiation and connected to process of perception, feeling, and differentiation. So when we become truly enlightened in this sense, in the Mahayana sense, in the Bodhisattva sense, then we live in suchness. It is something different to believe in suchness and to live in suchness. We give rise to bodhicitta, we believe in suchness. We practice the paramis because we believe in suchness. But when we become realized, we live in suchness. This is very different. So when we live in suchness, then we can absorb the essence and functions of the suchness, which is knowledge and unthinkable karma, connected with, as we have said, with a miracle of psychic powers, miracle of teaching, and miracle of leading sentient beings, giving them instructions. So only this power of contained in the suchness, in the suchness has unexhausted potential. We will see next this potential of the suchness, which is a potential for true goodness, true wholesomeness, is never exhausted. But the ignorance, it has no beginning, but it can have the end when we rely on the power of the mind, which is already connected with non-differentiation, with the direct understanding of non-dualism. So the next passage explains that the permeation of mind by unwholesome, by that which causes us suffering, it continues and stops only in the state of perfect Buddhahood. But the permeation by the wholesome Dharma, which brings a true happiness beyond differentiation, it is without interruption. It never ends. Even when we become Buddhas, it never ends. But when we become the Buddhas, the influence of the unwholesome, of ignorance, ends. But the influence of the wholesome, which is suchness, which is the nature of the suchness, which is the nature of true wholesome, belongs as uh, Vajrachedika, the Diamond Sutra teaches, the true virtue belongs to suchness, not to an individual. And this true nature belonging to the suchness never stops. And when we practice on the base of this uh, true nature of the wholesome without the differentiation, then our way to realization will be very fast. When we practice on the base of differentiation, it will be slow. This is what we have learned before. So it is a function arising from suchness which permeates the mind, and this function can never stop. Why? Because the essence and suchness, they cannot be separated. That's why the permeation based on suchness has no beginning, has and cannot have end. What has no beginning cannot have end. And when ignorance ends, then we become the Dharmakaya. So also the function of Dharmakaya will be fully revealed to us when we attain stage by stage the higher stages of the Bodhisattva way, then it will be partially revealed to us. But the complete revelation of suchness, the complete revelation of the true nature of the mind is the privilege of the fully realized Buddha. It is beyond the ability even of the highly realized bodhisattvas. This is also what Vasubandhu says in the Trimshika, in the Cheng Wei Shalun. The only the Buddha himself understand the Vaishya, understand the mind only. When we realize the faith, we can partially understand it. When we practice according to the faith, when we live in the realization of the faith, when we transform our merit for all beings to realize uh, this faith, then this suchness will become more and more clear in our mind. And when we have the bodhisattva realization, then we live in suchness. And this living in suchness will become deeper and deeper as we realize the higher and higher stage of non-dualistic enlightenment. So in order to reveal suchness, we need the mind which arises and passes away. We need the differentiating mind. But when we have realized the suchness, then we don't rely on that mind anymore. So whether the author says that these qualities or gunas or xiang, that is the characteristics of suchness, they do not increase and do not diminish. They are not in a process. They are not in time. Whatever is in time is in process. but the suchness is a root of all the processes, but it does not live in the process. So these qualities of the suchness is purity of the suchness, the purity of the non-differentiating mind does not increase in Buddhas, does not diminish in ordinary beings, because it has no beginning, so it can never have any end. Not to speak about the middle. It is unreachable, and that is a reaching, as the Heart Sutra explains. Unreachable is a reaching. This is the paradox the Zen tradition always likes to use. So this Buddha nature does not arise, does not cease, but it is not opposed to arising and ceasing. It has not the uh, ending because it has no arising, it has no aparakoti, koti. It is ultimate, it is eternity, and it is always full of all virtues because it summarizes, it is summum bonum, it summarizes all the virtues. So the virtues are in non-differentiation. The true virtues are in non-differentiation. So only being in non-differentiation, they can be beyond the good and evil. And that is the ultimate good. So this is different from the theistic religion. In this ultimate good, there cannot be any real creator. So this ultimate good is, the text say, is possessed of the light of great wisdom. What it means, it's possessed of the light of great wisdom. It cannot be removed by ignorance. No way to remove the suchness of the mind by any ignorance. So in the language of the Mahayana Buddhism, it is the Vairochana Buddha, the uh, the form and emptiness, they are inseparable. And this is symbolized by the Vairochana Buddha. The Mahanirvana Sutra teaches that the difference between the Mahayana and the teaching of the Shravakas is that the Nirvana in the teaching of the Shravakas, Nirvana has no form. In the teaching of the Bodhisattvas, nirvana and form, they are inseparable. So this is the mystery of the Sambhoga Kaya, of the body of enjoyment. Through the body of enjoyment, the Bodhisattva realizes the Dharmakaya. And this suchness of the mind illumines the whole of Dharmadhatu. That means the whole of the universe. So it is omnipresent, and it is in all phenomena. It is without obstacles. This is the teaching of the Huayan, of the Avatamsaka. The principle and the phenomena, they have no obstacle between them. That's why the phenomena also have, in the true mind, all phenomena, they are connected. This is a mystery of the Indranet, of which the Fazang is always speaking. Each and every phenomena reflects all the other phenomena. The principle, because the principle is present, omnipresent in all the phenomena. That is why this suchness can illumine the whole Dharma Dhatu, because it has no obstacles. Being without beginning and the end, it has no obstacles. The obstacles belong to something that arises. But in it, there is no true beginning and no true end. So it is omnipresent. It is always there. It knows and cognizes the true reality as it is. Yatha bhutam. What is the true reality? We should know, learning Buddhism, the true reality is signless, wuxiang. It is empty, kung. It is desireless. It is Wu Yuan. This is the true nature of the reality. In this reality, things arise, things pass away, but not really arise, not really pass away. Why? Because this reality has no intention. We have intention, but this reality has no intention. In it, all intentions and all thoughts do not really arise. It is a pure mind. What is pure mind? The Buddha nature, the Tathagata Garbha, the womb of Tathagata. It is a true mind in its own nature. What does it mean? According to the scriptures, the impurities of the mind, they are agantuka. They are guests to the mind. This is explained in Theravada, and it is also explained in Abhidharma Kosha in a way. This purity of the mind, like in Theravada, belongs in the Sarvastivada, it is little complicated. It belongs to the bhavanga. It belongs to the continuity of the mind. The purity of the mind belongs to the continuity of the mind, which is called bhavanga, the course of existence. With this course of existence, we are born, we continue. Whenever we start thinking because the continuity of the mind is interrupted by attention, according to Theravada. And in this tradition, this purity of the mind belongs to this essence and characteristics of the mind. This is the Swabhava Prabhasvarachita. It is the self-illumining mind. The true nature of the mind in this tradition is emptiness and self-illumination. Emptiness and self-illumination. And this emptiness and self-illumination of the mind, whether we have realized it or not, it is the true nature of the mind. We cannot, whether we are aware of it or not aware of it, we cannot run away from it. It's always with us. Only due to our ignorance, we don't see it. But it is always there because it is the intrinsic nature of the mind. Without this base of emptiness and luminosity, the mind would not be able to function in this tradition. That is why it can contain all objects, but due to our ignorance, it contains all objects on the base of believing in their true existence. Because we rely on the object-subject mind, and we don't see the origin of this object and subject, which is exactly connected to this luminosity and empty nature of the mind. So it is eternal because it does not belong to time. That which does not belong to time is eternal. What has not arisen, does not cease, is eternal. So the exact opposite of correct differentiation. Correct differentiation is wucha, which means impermanence. Whenever the mind arises, for sure it is impermanent. But here in this tradition, this true mind, the suchness, the non-differentiating mind, has never arisen. Yet objects arise from it. It has no time, yet the time arises from it. It is blissful. Why? Because the suffering cannot arise in it. The suffering arises from differentiating mind, from thinking mind. But in this mind, there is no thinking. So how can suffering arise from it? Therefore, it is blissful. No dukkha can arise from it. The dukkha arises from impermanence, and impermanence arises from differentiation. Then it is self. What self? Not Atman, not self belonging somewhere. It is a Paramatman. It is the universal self, which has no limitation because it is all permeating. And it is pure because that in that which has not arisen, no pollution can arise. Pollution can arise only in that which is subjected to arising and ceasing away. So it is beyond death, yet not opposed to death. It is beyond birth, yet not opposed to birth. Because it is free from grasping. The process of birth and death is the process of grasping. But this mind is completely free from grasping because it is free from thought. And it is cool. In Buddhism, the fever belongs to the vexations of the mind, to the kleshas. It is completely deprived of kleshas. And being deprived of kleshas, it has a sovereignty, it has a freedom. Without realizing this true nature of the mind, in this tradition, we have no access to real freedom. So let us finish here. Please give it a thought and see how it is connected in this genuine, this scripture. The greatness of the scripture is he is coming again and again to the same themes, but on a different level. So you have to go back to the beginning and repeat again, see what is one mind, what are the three greatnesses of the one mind, and how the uh, impermanent mind and non and permanent mind are connected in us beings, and how it works in the process of realization. Then these things will start to appear clearly. When they appear clearly, we can meditate on them. Then the samadhi of non-thinking will become very clear. Otherwise, if you don't understand, it will not be clear. What is not clear, you will always grasp by thinking. What is clear, you will not try to grasp by thinking. So you will get deeper and deeper into the samadhi of suchness. Om Mitoba. So let us finish here. Next week we will continue on the 14th. Then we will have 2 weeks break and continue on the 4th of January. So you have a lot of time to repeat it. This scripture is just wonderful. It is a wonder scripture, but only when you think about it and only when you review it. I have translated it into Czech, but I am understanding slowly and slowly and slowly and slowly its meaning, and my practice is changing because by contemplating on it, I get the blessing of this scripture. And that is, understanding it is a blessing. The mind blesses itself. Okay. 愿以此功德，普济一切，我等一众生，皆空成佛道。May the merits of this practice spread to all beings, so that we attain the highest realization. Omito. Okay. Have a nice weekend. And the next week, if I'm still around, I will be in a different world. From tropical to snow. Very wonderful. So this world is so wonderful, and we have such an opportunity to understand something of it. How everything is causes and conditions, and we have to know how to live in these causes and conditions with an equal mind. Okay, have a nice weekend. Bye bye.
Take care, Pastor. Thank you.
Thank you, Bente.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Bente.
bye bye.
Bye.
Oh,
Thank you,
alles
Pastor.
Gute. Wir what's the one?
Okay, makasih.
Bye bye.